your host, Lorna Blake, life empowerment specialist and spiritual teacher, joining you live today from Chennai, South Korea. I'm delighted to be back with you, and I want you to know that I recognize myself as a messenger. I'm here on the planet to bring more love, light, and consciousness now. And as I learn new truths, I feel a responsibility to share that with others, and that's why we're doing this show today. So, are you preparing for ascension? Are you preparing for ascension? If not, why not? Now, if you got an invitation to be a guest at a wedding, would you prepare or would you procrastinate? And I know that has come up for me before. I know some of us tend to do preparation well in advance and others procrastinate.
I want you guys to bear with us. I'm doing a video, and this video is basically a live radio show that I'm doing in Canada right now. I want to put it on YouTube, so this is the intro. Bear with us. Peace and love. You're now tuning to 13SignsAstrology.com.
Are you going to pass it up? Are you going to pass up the opportunity to be there? Or are you going to do something to prepare? I'm preparing, and that's why we're doing this radio show, and that's why we've got the guests that we've got today. So I don't want to keep you in suspense much longer. And so let me get right to it and share that our very special guest today is Imhotep. And he's an astrologer, healer, spiritual advisor, and researcher of the supernatural. He studies crystals, raw foods, and advanced techniques of meditation. He's an indigenous American who is also an entrepreneur, musician, speaker, and writer. Ra comes from a long line of community activists, politicians, and professionals. He actually began working in the community at 16 and has helped various political campaigns at a grassroots level. He has traveled across the U.S. campaigning, promoting, and supporting various movements. Now, participating in talk radio since 2008, in 2010, Ra did a radio show predicting the newly discovered astrological sign of Ophiuchus, which was made public by large media networks such as CNN and Time Magazine 2 months later. He has been blogging and writing on mystical topics since 2007. His most widely circulated blog on the internet was written on the death of Whitney Houston in February 2012. You can find out all about Ra's blogs and all his works on his website, 13SignsAstrology.com. I came across his videos on YouTube some time ago, and I was very impressed with the extent of his knowledge, his wisdom, and insight. So I contacted him and invited him to be a guest on our show, and he very quickly agreed despite his very hectic schedule. So I want to welcome Ra. Ra, welcome to the Wake Up Call 2012 and beyond. We're so glad you could be here.
Peace and blessings to everybody. I'm glad to be here in the house as well in Canada.
Excellent, excellent. So we are glad to do that. So I want to get into a little bit about you, Ra. You talk about having begun activism around age 16. So what age did you actually start doing spiritual work? Was that prior? How would you say you got into the work that you've done as a spiritual researcher and advisor and healer and so on? When did that start for you?
Well, technically that started when I was 24. What happened was from the ages of 16 to 24, I was involved with like religious organizations, and I was more of like a grassroots person that did a lot of grassroots work for different organizations. Now, at the same time, I was getting enlightened, I was becoming spiritual and things like that in the process, but I wasn't actually doing spiritual advisor work. I was just studying on my own, but I was still doing community activism work at a young age or whatever. And by the time I turned about 24, in a particular organization I was in, I was asked to be one of the teachers. The teacher is basically similar to a minister in this particular organization. And I was asked to be a teacher or whatever. I'm not going to go into the organization too much here, but I was asked to be a teacher.
That's okay.
And I accepted the offer, and I joined a formal class to take on like knowledge and information so that I could, I guess, go more deeper into learning how to present information to people. I mean, because I already had knowledge in my head, don't get me wrong, but this ministry class or this teaching class was kind of like a ministry class, I guess you can call it that. So I did that, and I ended up leaving the organization actually in the midst of being in the class, but everything that I learned, I took and kind of like just kept it up under my belt, and then I kind of like, I joined a couple of other different organizations, and in these organizations, I took more of a leadership role, like when I joined those organizations, like I didn't join from a grassroots I guess you could say foot soldier point of view, but I joined from a teacher point of view. So I mean, I was able to get a lot more experience, like basically between the ages of 24 and I'll say 28, I got like some serious experience with my spiritual advising and stuff like that. And by 28, that's when I finally hit the radio at 28. My first time doing online radio was at the age of 28, and I've pretty much been at it ever since.
So you said you got into radio show at that point at age 28. You said?
Yes, I got on online radio at age 28. Yep.
Wow. So you've been on this road for quite some time.
Oh yeah, indeed. I've been on this road really since I was a teenager. It really found me. I mean, I was in the process. I thought I was going to be dead by the time I was 25, like according to what I did before I was 16.
Wow.
So I'm not going to go into all of that.
You want to get into that a little bit because you know what, Ra? I think your story is very powerful and it could help a lot of people who may be tuned in right now, or it could help some of their youth, right?
Right.
So I would love for you to share a little bit of that. So you said you thought you would have died before age 25?
Yeah, that was my prediction. I never expected to be living past 25. I mean, I wouldn't have been shot. I had already kind of like made my mind up, everything. Like it was serious. Like I really was like, I'm going to be dead at the age of 25. When I was when I was like 14. I was like 14 at the time.
Really?
And I figured I wouldn't live past.
Was that because you were on the streets? What was it that made you feel at age 14 that you wouldn't survive past 25?
Yeah, because I was on the streets, and it was mainly like my values and my role models at the time were a bunch of gangsters and thugs and criminals and stuff. So it was like mainly like I just really didn't have values. I really didn't have the proper type of guidance when it came to fatherly guidance, you know. And I'm not knocking my parents or anything like that. I mean, they did the best they could do based on their situations, but I'm just saying I didn't have it. You know what I'm saying? I just didn't have it. So my role models was basically criminals and people that was a part of street organizations. And I mean, I was a part of a street organization and just a lot of lower vibrational stuff that I know had to happen. I don't regret any of it because that's what really helped me to be like on this path at such a young age, because it made me to be like really fearless. So like that's kind of like I can stand up at the age of 30 years old, and that's kind of young to be, you know, presenting things to people, but I can still stand up and be like okay with it, you know what I'm saying? Because I've seen so much in the street.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
I think that's part of the reason why when I saw your videos on YouTube, I was really drawn to it because I caught little bits and pieces that you would share in between the teaching. You would give a little snippet of your life, and I go, wow. You know, there was one video you shared about, it was about you were talking to religious leaders, and I was inspired by that because I also come from a religious background. But what you just shared is that you're really not knocking your parents, but the role models that you had when you were a teen, they were actually criminals. And so that really gave you a sense that you wouldn't really live very long. But it also was part of what bridged the gap for you. It was part of the catalyst that helped you to get to this point right now where you are as a spiritual teacher and advisor and all of that, would you say? Oh
yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's why I said I wouldn't turn it in for the world. I just did a video called I'm a Light Worker from the Hood. And that's basically, it's kind of funny you talking to me about this because I just got done really kind of talking about that yesterday. So, I mean, it's fresh on my mind. But, definitely.
I love that. You know what, Ra? I fully support you doing that because there are so many young men who would be inspired and will be inspired to hear that story of you saying, I'm a light worker from the hood. Because for so many, they don't have that. They don't have somebody like you. And that's part of the reason that I actually was drawn to having you on. Is I said, I really would love to have representation from someone, I don't know if you would call yourself African American, from what I would say, a person.
I'm actually of Moorish descent. Just to kind of clarify that up, I'm of Moorish descent. I don't consider myself African American, but I am of Moorish descent. Like I've traced my bloodline back. So, basically, I'm an indigenous American.
You're indigenous American.
Yeah, like I wasn't brought over here. Yeah, I wasn't brought over here in slavery. Like my ancestors weren't brought over in American slavery. So that's the difference.
So that is also rare, I think, because I haven't met a lot of, you would say, indigenous Americans whose foreparents or ancestors were not brought to North America in chains.
That's right.
I come from Yes, I mean, I relate to you. I'm Jamaican born, and my ancestors were brought from Africa to the West Indies, to Jamaica. So when I hear you, what grabs me about you is that you have a strong sense of your sovereignty, and I think that's very, very powerful and very important to establish. So you, early on, recognized that there was more going on in the world than what was actually happening on the street. And so you started this spiritual search. So I want to bring us sort of up to speed with this particular time. So how did you find out about ascension and what ascension is? How did you come to that point?
I found out about ascension. Formally, I found out about ascension when I was about 26 years old, but I was actually experiencing ascension when I was 24. Finding out about ascension and experiencing it is two different things. You can actually be experiencing ascension right now and don't realize it.
So that's what I would love for you to clarify. So you said you found out about ascension when you were 24.
Yes.
But you started experiencing it at 26.
Indeed, yep. When I was 26 years old, no. It was the exact reverse. I was experiencing it when I was 24 years old, and I found out about it like formally as far as a topic when I was 26. I didn't even know what I was experiencing at 24.
I see. So what kind of things were you experiencing? I'm curious now.
It was mainly like I was into meditation at 24, and in the process of me being into meditation, I would have these heightened experiences, like being like spiritual beings would come visit me during meditation, like where I would be in a meditation state and I would see the room that I was in meditating, but my eyes would be closed. But like through my third eye, I would see the room that I was in meditating. But then as I'm sitting there, like watching over my body, like some beings would come and maybe like some light beings would come in, and they would kind of like have a humanoid type of halo about them, and they would come and like maybe talk to me and just things like that. Like when I say ascension, this is like experiencing heightened types of reality, like heightened states of reality that we're not really normally used to experiencing. So I was experiencing that type of stuff at like the age of 24 years old, like, and I didn't know what it was at the time, like I said, but it wasn't until 26 when I really actually found out, like, oh, okay, I may be going through an ascension process.
Wow, that is pretty impressive. So, you know, that really puts you, I guess, it sets you apart, in terms of some of the experiences that you had, because, you know, you talked about how you actually were seeing things through your third eye. So we're going to probably get to that, you know, because there's some people who might be saying, what are you talking about? You were seeing beings show up while your eyes were closed. Some people may not be able to relate to that. So, you know, so let's carry on a little bit. So tell me something. Why should we give this idea of ascension any credence? What is the validity of that, Russ? Can you help us understand that?
The idea of ascension, I'll explain it to you first, and then, you know, we'll talk about why people should consider it is, the idea of ascension is that we have a set of chakras. And for your listeners that don't know what chakras are, I'll explain it. Chakras are basically energy centers that help the energy, like our body is fueled by energy. And chakras are major energy centers within the body, like major energy centers, meaning that your body has ley lines that connect nerves and different things together. And chakras are major points where like a bunch of nerves and energy centers, the energy is located at. So you have 7 different chakras. You actually have more than 7 chakras, but you have 7 major chakras. Really more than that. You really have 13 major chakras. But for the sake of explaining this, I'm going to say 7 right now because I know your listeners may be new to this. So you have 7 major chakras that are known. And basically, when you talk about ascension, we are all conscious beings. Like your life experience is based on your consciousness. So your consciousness is based on which chakra that you're living from. You could be living from one of 7 chakras, and I'll go through them. The first one is the root chakra, which is dealing with survival of the fittest, just everyday survival, like just, you know, bottom line eating and just whatever you got to do to make it, like to make sure that your body survives to the next day.
Having a roof over your head and having clothes on your body and putting food in your stomach.
Exactly, yeah, that's survival. So that's the root chakra. Some people
what you're saying is when people are operating from that chakra, they're basically concerned just with the day-to-day.
Exactly. So I don't have to go through all 7 chakras for the sake of time, but let's just say this. That's the first one. And it's different chakras, like, and you could be living on, let me give another example. You could be the exact opposite and be living on the 6th chakra, which is the spiritual chakra, which is like the third eye, or the third eye that I was telling you about. Now that's a little bit different because in that particular consciousness, you will be living from a spiritual point of view, meaning that you're focused on faith, you're focused on making your relationship right with the universe and the creator or God, which you would consider God. That's dealing with the sixth chakra. Those are people like religious people and spiritual people that are trying to live on a higher octave, basically. That's the sixth chakra. So you are conscious based on different levels. So if you're stuck on lower chakras, this is called being caught on the lower level or whatever, or lower level of existence. So you want to kind of ascend. And the way that you ascend is by raising your consciousness up to the next chakra or to the next level. So say for instance, if you caught up on survival mode, and that's your consciousness, you know, like eating every day. And some people get deep into survival mode where it gets to the point where it's not constructive anymore, where they're going out and killing people to eat, and they're going out and robbing people to eat. And that's still survival mode. That's just the opposite negative end of it. So basically what you want to do is that you want to ascend your consciousness to the next level. You're supposed to constantly ascend or whatever. Like every so many years, we're supposed to constantly be ascending. And when I say ascending, this is just what level of consciousness you're existing on, meaning like what's your zero time reference, or what level of consciousness are you existing on? Like, are you living from the heart? Are you living from the mind? Are you living from the throat? Are you living from the root level? So that's the basic level of ascension, but there's different aspects to it. Now, there's a level of ascension when, like, once you get into it and you experience it through meditation, like this is how you raise your consciousness up, through breathing, proper eating, and proper meditating. If your listening audience didn't know, proper eating, proper breathing, and proper meditating is really like the basis of spirituality, believe it or not. Like people say, well, I'm spiritual because I go to church and things like that, but really your spirituality is based on how much spiritual energy you have. It's called chi. And when you eat properly, when you meditate and do things the right way, you have a lot more spiritual energy, which helps you to ascend. So essentially, that's what the ascension process is. I mean, I can go more in depth if you want me to, but that's an overview of it. It's basically when you learn how to live on another higher level of existence or a higher level of consciousness. Basically, like when your values when your values are increased, or when you raise your morals and your standard of values, when you raise that standard.
Right.
That's you know what I'm saying, surface level.
What you're saying then is,
I was just saying that's the surface level of it.
Right, which is good. You're saying that ascension is really when you learn how to live on a higher level of consciousness or vibration.
Exactly. Right? Now, there's different degrees to it, and I don't want to explain too much because I don't know where your listeners are at, but there's different degrees to it. I will say that. So that's just the first level of it.
That's great. I think that answer will do. So why should people give this idea any credence? So, why should they make that relevant? People are probably going to say, so what? So I need to learn how to live on a higher level of consciousness. So why is that relevant to my life today? Why should I give that idea any credence right now? Is there some reason for that right now?
In this day and time, we're in the time of ascension. We are in the season of ascension. Now, let's get into dimensions. This is another level of ascension because you're asking why should people do this, and I have to explain dimensions now. There are different dimensions. Like we live in what's called the third dimension. We live in what's called the third dimension, or 3D reality. And when you understand ascension, when you dream and stuff like that, that's called the fourth dimension. Like when you have a dream, or if you have an out-of-body experience, when people call it, like Christians call it miracles and stuff like that, when you have those things, that's actually experiencing life on the fourth dimension. Now, what's going to happen is that fourth dimension.
You said miracles we experience at a fourth dimensional level?
Yeah, miracles, all that type of stuff, or that's fourth dimensional type of reality, like miracles, dreams. All of those things are very real. They're very real, but we don't give reality to it because we are caught up in physical reality. But those things are very real. Your dreams are very real. Like you're very much solving problems in the dream world, just like you are here. So when you start talking about ascension or whatever, like on that level, is different dimensions or whatever. So what's happening is we're going into a life that's going to be more so eventually over time, and I'm going to get into this more when we talk about 2012, but we're going into a life that's going to be more about the fourth dimension. What I mean by this is that more paranormal and occult type of scenarios are going to rule and govern, to the point where even things that you think about, whether you accept ascension or not, say for instance, if you're a negative person and you always think about negative things and you're depressed and stuff like that all the time, you're going to begin to attract those things a lot easier to yourself and a lot faster. So that's why you have to really check your consciousness and your state of existence, because whatever you think about mostly will come back to you more during this time. And this is because of the 2012 and the Mayan prophecy, which I'll go into more. But this is why it's important that we ascend or whatever, because we have to ascend because we have to learn, we have to live, and the rules are changing basically. The rules of our existence are changing based on the fourth dimension. So we have to play by the new rules. So we have to ascend. Like we have to ascend because we have to basically raise our frequency and our vibration.
Gotcha. Fantastic. So now you've given us another level or another layer to consider. It's that we are actually moving into a life, as you say, we're moving toward a life that's going to be more paranormal. So if we are people who are negative generally in our life, we're going to attract more negative things more quickly. Because what's happening, as you say, is that the rules of our existence is changing.
Exactly.
Right? Because, as you said, the 2012, the Mayan prophecy around 2012. So let's get into that a bit more. So how are we able to pinpoint an actual date? Like December 21st, 2012 is being bandied about everywhere. Tell us how. How do we come to that? Can you tell us, share a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Now, in my YouTube, on my YouTube channel, I have a video called The Shift. And it's dealing with the date that the shift is supposed to happen on is December the 21st, 2012. Now, I gave that date on YouTube just for the sake of giving people a time reference. But really, in reality, when you start researching the Mayan prophecies, you'll find out that the Mayans actually predicted an 8-year period that this shift would take place. And this 8-year period would start in 2007, according to the Mayans, and it would end in 2015. Now,
I see.
Yeah. Now, according to this 8-year period, there are different things that could happen, planetary things that could happen because the planet is going to shift as well, and also beings on the planet will shift because we're on the planet. So women will begin to shift a lot faster than men, which has already started happening. But it's going to be basically just a lot of shifts taking place. But essentially, the date. Let me get back to the date. The date basically is really just a date, kind of like a surface date of when the energy will be felt the most intensely. Like the Mayans figured by December the 21st, 2012, this energy will be felt by most, and most people will know that this energy is real, so that's why they gave that date. But if those people that were conscious and aware way back in 2007, you'll know that the shift started in 2007, and you could feel it. Even over here in America, like when Barack Obama won the election, I'm not into politics, just keep that in mind, but that was a part of the shift. Even his winning was very much a part of the shift when you understand it from a spiritual point of view. So the shift is definitely.
I would agree with that.
The shift is definitely taking place. And the date. Don't get caught up too much on the date. Just focus on what I'm talking about, like the message behind it. Like the date is like, I'm not a gloom and doom teacher. I'm not a prophet. I'm not here to tell people that the world is going to end or anything like that. My thing is just letting people know that you have to increase your consciousness. You have to increase your awareness if you want to make it to the next level. And it's just a must. It's just a must because I want to point this out too. This planet has not always been on a third dimension. This planet used to be on a fourth dimension. So we actually fell into a third dimension. This was a temporary state. This state was never meant to last as long as it's last. Like it was never meant to be this long or whatever. As far as us being in the state of lower consciousness, like humans are in the state of basically we're on a lower chakra level. Like we're not vibrating on a level that we are meant to vibrate on. Like we were created to be spiritual light beings, and we're vibrating on a level of animals. And actually, the animals probably are more in tune than us, actually. But that's another subject in and of itself.
No, but this point that you just made, that we were created to be spiritual light beings. I think there's some of us who have a sense of that. We have a knowing about that.
Indeed.
That we could actually feel that within our maybe we came with that sense of there's more to life than this, than survival. I want to live up. I want to live right. And just having a sense of that. But getting back to this, I just want to just talk about what you said. You said it's important for us to not get fixated on a date like December 21st, 2012. However, that the fact is that the energy, a lot of shifts have been taking place since 2007, and the energy will be felt by most people in 2012.
Right.
And in order for people to make it past this particular, the three-dimensional reality, we need to increase our consciousness. Correct?
Correct. That is absolutely correct. We need to increase our consciousness. We need to raise our vibration. And we do that by getting in tune with nature, but I'll go more into that later.
Yeah, no, I love that. So tell me then, why do people need to prepare? Because, all right, there's some people who might say, well, I mean, I'm already conscious. The fact is, the people who are living just at a survival level and are killing each other off or whatever, they're not conscious. They don't know what's going on. If I know that something is actually going on, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I just heard a little click. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure. All right, so they might say, well, you know, the people who don't, they're, you know, living like hoodlums or whatever, they don't know what's going on. If I'm aware, if I'm conscious that something is actually going on, what else kind of preparation do I need to make? So can you answer that?
That would depend on where you're at geographically. That would depend on who you are as a person. Because we all have different levels of, I guess you could say, consciousness and different levels of our reality and like just who we are as a people. We all are different. So, I mean, how can you prepare? That's basically contingent upon who you are as a person. But there are general things that you can do to prepare. Like, for instance, you want to definitely get more in tune with your inner being. That's the best way to start. Those people that know me know I promote, like I'm a meditation coach. I promote meditating really, really heavy. And meditation is what really did it for me. So that's the first step that I tell everybody.
So you're recommending that people need to start meditating?
Yes, a lot more.
Correct?
Yes, a lot more.
But you mentioned something there. You said it depends on where you are geographically. Why is our geographic position or geographic location important in terms of preparation? So give me a little heads up on that. Help me understand that a bit.
Okay, I'm not a gloom and doom prophet, but let's talk about a little science here. And we have poles. We have the magnetic poles, and then we have physical poles, like the North Pole and the South Pole. Those are poles. And then you got the magnetic poles. Now, the magnetic poles are based on magnetism, or where the poles actually are. And this is important for people that are flying and birds and everything. They're all tuned into the magnetic pole. So the Mayans predict that, and this could happen within 24 hours, that when the shift happens, it happens all the time. Now, keep in mind, let me point this out too, because I have to point it out here. The shift has happened before. This is not the first time that the shift has happened on this planet. So keep in mind that when the shift happens this time, the Mayans have already, since the Mayan culture goes back thousands and thousands of years, so they've already within their culture passed down history of the shift from times before when the shift happened. So that's how they're able to know about this, because people are like, well, how do we know the Mayans aren't just making this stuff up? They're able to know about it because they're like shamans, and they pass on their records from like shaman to shaman every so many years, like when a shaman dies. So that's how they know about this or whatever. So they have within their records something about the poles, and the poles are supposed to basically come to a standstill for a certain amount of days. Now, when this happens, I don't know if those people that have seen the movie 2012, but when this happens, this could create an event similar to what happened in 2012 when the magnetic poles kind of like stopped, and remember the planet shifted. Like where Milwaukee is today, Milwaukee was where the North Pole is right now. So like where the North Pole is today, Milwaukee shifted, or the land of Milwaukee shifted to where the North Pole is today. And that happens because we can go through what's called a pole shift, a physical pole shift. And when that happens, the magnetism basically is what keeps the physical crust of the planet intact. Like they didn't teach us this in school, that the physical crust of the planet is not stationary. It's basically kind of shifting and moving around. Like the only continent that's stationary and fixed is Africa. But outside of Africa, all the other continents move around. It's called the continental drift. So when the shift happens, based on this magnetism, just kind of explaining at a really surface level, this magnetism could cause what's called an earth shift, or basically a planetary shift where the crust of the planet shifts into different directions. And the magnetic poles have already been shifting. Like the magnetic pole right now has been going from where the North Pole is right now to Siberia, which is in Russia. Like, so the magnetic pole has been shifting every so often. Scientists, they talk about it, but it's not been something it's not going to come on the news or anything like that. But scientists have been talking about it on the internet, and they are worried about it, like as far as like the poles shifting and the magnetic pole shifting. So how this ties into like where you're at as far as geographically, this ties into that because basically, depending on where you're at, you might be in a place that has a potential to be a shift zone, or a place that's going to shift pretty much. So to really understand that, you can like go online and look at some of those maps, like it's called the New American Maps, and just different maps that kind of give an idea. But it's mostly American-centered, though, of the places that'll be safe havens based upon when the shift happens or whatever. But generally, anywhere along the equator or close to the equator is going to be the safest spots. And like the places away from the equator, or furthest away from the equator, they're going to go through a lot of weather shifts, like a lot of drastic weather shifts. Like you might experience, like I guess like Canadian weather down like down south. Like it might get to that point eventually as the shift takes place. Like down south, like here, I guess you could say down south, like in the United States, meaning like in Florida and Georgia, you might experience weather that's frigid. You know what I'm saying? And cold weather that you normally don't experience there, like based on where you're at. So, and it's up to you to really get in tune with your own biological clock to know like if you're in the right direction. If you feel an inclination like I should leave and I don't know if I'm in the right spot, like we're just like birds. Like birds know when to leave and they know when to migrate. So you have something in you that will tell you if you're in the right spot. So you don't have to worry. Trust in your own intuition. If you know that God has you in the right spot and the Creator or the Most High has you in the right spot or whatever, and you know you're in the right spot and you feel safe, then don't worry about anything I'm saying. But if you really know deep down inside you feel like you're in a bad situation or something, you probably need to make a change quick, because the shift is going to force people to change. So that's what I mean by like where you're at physically. That's what I mean by that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing, and I certainly want to. I used to actually get very worried about anything that came up about shifts and all of that. And one of the things that I have come to understand is that we have an opportunity with our consciousness, mass consciousness, to change some of these things. And that if enough people are fearful about stuff, then stuff can in fact happen. So the idea behind it from my perspective is, as you suggest, for people to tune into their inner guidance. And if there's a sense that you're not feeling safe where you are, certainly to consider, preparation for going someplace else. But I've actually looked at some research that showed that the North Pole and the South Pole don't really exist. And that's a whole other story. But the idea behind it is we need to...
Yeah. Can I interject? That's based on magnetism. I know what you mean. I'm sorry. I was going to interject, but I'll make a point after.
Sure thing. Go ahead. The idea is that we do need to prepare for this, the ascension from a spiritual point of view, and tune into your intuition. Yeah.
Indeed. And I was just going to point out that, the poles don't exist physically. It's based on magnetism. Actually, at one point, where the North Pole is now, that used to be the South Pole. Like, they've always shifted. Like, as far like when we talk about poles, we're talking about magnetism, like on the planet, not necessarily a physical.
Right.
Like there is no such thing as a physical pole. You're right. There is no such thing as that.
Great. Thank you for that. So tell me then, what's the first step that you would recommend that people begin taking? So we've talked about, some of the things that, some of the ways in which people live on a lower vibration. For people who feel that they've got some spiritual work to do, what's the first step that you would encourage them to take? Let's go there.
I tell everybody, even though we're all different, it's a general consensus of, like, I can tell you how to survive the shift, and it's basic. The only thing you want to do is that you want to change your diet, you want to start meditating and eating properly, and you want to get into either a healthy relationship, or if you can't find a healthy relationship, you have to be at peace with, yourself and who you are, like, by yourself. I mean, getting to situations where you're dating more than one person, and this is for like a lot of young people out there listening, where you're dating more than one person and stuff like that. That's cool. I'm not a religious person, but like now we're going into a time where you're more safe and secure if you have a partner, or you're just with yourself, because people are kind of like going out of their mind with the shift. So it's like your friends and people that you thought were going to be there for you, they might not be there for you. You know what I'm saying? So you want to find either one secure partner that you know, like a soulmate or a twin flame or something, or if you can't find that, just somebody that you know will be there for you in this shift. But you need that. You need to learn how to meditate. You need to learn how to eat properly. Like if you take up a vegan diet or even a vegetarian diet, and you meditate and you got you a good partner, or you secure within yourself, and you want to get you a survival kit too, enough food to be able to last for at least 3 months. And not, like I said, I'm not a survivor. I'm not here to like scare people and all that type of stuff. It's just, basically, like, you need these things anyway. Like, you should always have 3 months worth of food just in case for I mean, not even just for, survival purposes, but just for, you're having a full, wholesome home. But definitely during the shift, you definitely want to have at least 3 months worth of food. You want to know how to meditate. You want to know how to go without eating certain foods. You know what I'm saying? You want to be like a raw food or a vegan. It's because like at least you can survive off of like if you're a raw foodist, you can survive off of nuts, canned foods, vegetables and stuff like that. Versus if you're a meat eater and something happens, you can't get to meat. That person's going to go crazy because they have to go through addictions. Like people that eat meat are addicted. And I'm not trying to knock anybody's health here. I mean, I know health can get kind of sensitive for people sometimes, but I'm just trying to help people to survive the shift. So, like you want to definitely take up that vegetarian diet and raise your energy. That's the first step.
So I wanna check that, Rob, because it's a fascinating thing. Is the need, not the need so much, but your recommendation to change to a raw food or vegan diet, is that about becoming more spiritually conscious, or is that with regard to perhaps not being able to find food? So help us understand why it would be necessary to change. What is the point of it? Is it more for spiritual purposes, or is it more survival purposes?
It's both. First, spirituality is definitely linked into our survival, but let me explain something here about meat. Now meat, a lot of people might I know people get sensitive about health, but a lot of meat, this is very basic, people should know this, but a lot of meat, we really as humans, the only reason why we can eat meat the way we do is because we're commercialized, we're not in tune with nature. If we had to really hunt for our meat, we wouldn't be able to eat meat as much anyway. And when the shift happens, it's a chance that we're going to get pushed back into what we would consider the Stone Ages. As far as technology, satellites might get knocked out and stuff like that. So what you eat is going to be very important because we're not going to have the same technology and the same grid set up possibly. I'm not saying this is definite, but it's a possibility that the same grid may not be set up as far as being able to get the food to the different places. And what I'm saying, we really must depend on industry to get our meat and stuff like that. So, and if that grid was ever knocked out, you would have to be able to survive without meat. So that's one reason. But on the spiritual level and even on a healthy level, meat causes you to vibrate on a lower level. When I was talking about raising your vibration, you can only vibrate so high eating meat because you're consuming another animal that had the life itself, that was living itself, and it takes a lot of, I talked about chi earlier, and it takes a lot of chi to digest meat. People fail to realize when you digest meat, that's not just normal digestion. You have to use up extra energy to digest that. So in order for you to ascend, you have to become light. And I always talk about, people that know my videos, and I always talk about levity and becoming light. And that's when you eat a vegan, vegetarian diet, you'll become a lot more light, and it'll be easier for you to ascend through meditation. It'll be easier for you to detach. Ascension is basically detaching from things, pretty much, things in general. You shouldn't be attached to really anything. And that's really what the ascension is all about. And not to say there's something wrong with having things. I'm not getting religious here. I'm just saying you don't want to be attached to those things. So if you took up a vegetarian diet, for instance, it's easy to grow your own food. It's easier to grow things than it is to buy a bunch of cows and then slaughter them. That's a long process or whatever. So even just being able to get to food a lot easier. Say, for instance, if you were in a rural place, or if you do have a house and you can have a garden, you could be growing a lot of your vegetables and be saving a lot of money if you knew the stuff that you can grow in your area, that's indigenous to your area, the foods that are indigenous to your area. Yeah, so eating a healthy diet is just... I'm sorry, go ahead.
From a practical standpoint, what you're saying is it will be easier to grow your food if you're vegetarian or vegan.
Exactly. If you were a vegan, it would be easier for you to survive the shift, just in general, spiritually, mentally, and physically.
To survive the shift, right. Whereas if you're a meat eater, and you talked about it there, you said that it actually, it only allows you to vibrate at a lower level, and it's also, it will be a lot easier to find food.
Yeah, and I'm not, like I said, again, I'm not a gloom and doom teacher, so I'm not trying to scare anybody. I keep saying that over and over again.
No, and I think a lot of people have been hearing that for a long time, so I don't think you're the first person who would be saying that.
Oh, okay.
So you don't really need to, justify why you say that. I think it's certainly very valid. Now, the point about relationship, I thought that was an interesting point. You're saying that, we're coming up on a time where, if you're not in a safe and secure relationship and you're not secure with yourself, you might end up just feeling abandoned or being abandoned by those around you. And so you are recommending that people find themselves a soulmate or a twin flame. Do you want to just elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Sure. the soulmate and the twin flame thing, I know that sounds kind of oddball, but that's very much important when it comes to your ascension and your survival, because when you connect with someone on a soulmate and a twin flame level, it creates energy and a bond that's never been experienced here on this planet, because like most people on this planet, they connect with people they aren't really compatible with. That's just the norm or whatever, and that's why we have a lot of children that are lost and stuff like that, because we don't connect with people that we're compatible with. Back in the days when we were more tribalistic, the ancients would connect us with people that they knew we were compatible with. You know what I'm saying? Like they would have shamans and stuff like that to help to select somebody that we were definitely compatible with for reasons of ascension and like advancement of human beings or whatever, because human beings mixing with each other with incompatible people has a lot to do with why we got in this situation too, because it's created a lot of waste. Like a lot of people that are here on this planet are beings that basically are, I'm trying to figure out how to put this, kind of like, well, a whole lot of lost souls have come to this planet based upon how we've been mixing with each other. So when you, like, as far as the shift though, all that's going out the window now. Things are changing. So you want to meet somebody that you're really compatible with, your twin flame or your soulmate, because what's happening now is like people aren't really lasting too long with people they aren't compatible with, and it's really causing them more hell like nowadays than with like back in the days. I know even from my own experiences, it was one thing to like meet a female or something like that, and you might have been physically attracted to her. You might not have liked every level to her, but you just kind of wanted to be with her because you might have just wanted to sleep with her or something like that. I'm just being real, you know what I'm saying, like to the brothers out there. But nowadays, that's not good. That's not good. You have to find somebody that you connect with on every level, because like we're going through times where we might go through a serious transition and we might get knocked back in the stone ages, and your partner, your twin flame may be all that you have, and you definitely want to be with somebody that you're compatible with. You don't want to be stuck with a person, like, say for instance, you don't want to be stuck with a person that's not spiritual, and you're on this spiritual path and you're trying to ascend and you're trying not to eat meat, you're trying to eat meat less and stuff like that, and you're with someone that isn't. That's going to hold you down and hold you back. So that's why that's important as far as the relationship part.
That is a great point. So I love that you speak to the importance of being compatible with your partner. That for a lot of people, as you say, most people, they are, you know, in relationships which they're not compatible with their partners. And as you say that, I have observed as a coach, as a life coach, I'm part of a coaching directory, and I get a lot of leads, you know, with people's issues coming up, and a lot of people are having, you know, relationships that are just breaking apart at this point in time in a huge way, that you can see that there's something going on.
I'm glad you're saying that.
Not allowing the relationship to, it's just not working.
It's not.
Relationships are falling apart, so you're right.
It's not.
So the other piece that you said, which I like, is that relationship, that twin flame or partner relationship, may be all that you have, and that person can support you in your eating right, in your meditation, in your, you know, just your consciousness raising. And I can speak to that because I am with my twin flame, and I am so grateful.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing.
Actually, here in South Korea, we've actually seen shifts together.
Wow.
And I can speak to him about anything that's going on in terms of, you know, planning my day. Just stuff that, I mean, I've been married before, and I've had other relationships, and I knew I wasn't with somebody compatible, but I can seriously say I'm grateful to God, the universe, that I know that I'm here now in this particular time, and we have work to do together, virtual work to do together, in terms of helping raise awareness and consciousness, and it's something that we can actually, you know, we can support each other in creating a better world. So thanks for sharing that. That's really key.
Yeah, definitely. I could do a whole radio. I could come back on your show and talk all about twin flames and soulmates. I've been doing a lot of research on that.
I think that's something that people could really benefit from. So we may want to consider doing that. Great.
Indeed.
Great. So I'm mindful of how quickly time goes. I'm looking at the time, and it looks like we're coming down to 10:20 something. So I know that I want to be respectful of your time. And so I want to get quickly into a key point that you mentioned.
Okay.
You mentioned in one of your videos that in order for us to break free from the matrix or the enslavement that you know we're experiencing as a planet, we need to take responsibility for our own lives. And you talked about that many people have been misled into believing that God is going to come down and save them. And I found that very, it was a fascinating thing to hear. And then you got into something else. And I want you to help us understand, because as you're talking to people who come from religious backgrounds, myself included, you yourself as well. And religious institutions have misled us into believing that it's the guru, it's the pastor, it's the imam, it's the leader in that particular organization that's going to help us. And when we pray to God, then God will answer us. So you have a totally different take on that, and I want you to help us understand, what do you mean God is not going to come down and save us?
Now, when you talk about God, I don't care how religious you are, or, you have to learn the truth of God, and God is basically is an invoked. It means to invoke. When you look up the term God and you really research it, it can also mean force and power. But basically, essentially, a God is a deity or a being that can be invoked for force and power. So when you start talking about God, it could be lesser beings or even beings that may have a lower nature that could be considered gods in the Bible. Even in the Bible itself, when you research it from the original scriptures, which is something that you have to do if you want to understand it, because English doesn't do it justice, because that's why the whole Bible was never supposed to be translated into English based upon that was what the whole split from the Protestants and the Catholic movement was all about, was translating the Bible into English, because they knew if they translated the Bible into English, it would lose its meaning. But one of the things that lost without more people with history is God. The meaning of God has been lost to where people now, they put God on everything. And they don't realize that God, it's many gods. There's many gods, but there's only one Most High. So I'd like to talk about Anu, or Most High, which is or they call him in Hebrew, Elion, which is the Most High over the other angels and over the other gods. This is the highest God over those particular angels. But this particular God is so high and so selfless that it doesn't care. This particular God doesn't care about survival, the Most High God. It doesn't care about the physical reality, because the Most High is not a physical being. The only thing the Most High is concerned with is basically the universe running in structure and in order, pretty much, and making sure that everybody gets their experiences and everybody grows and everybody gets what's coming back to them. So the Most High put certain, what we would call angels, or some people now have been calling them gods, in certain positions to answer certain prayers and to get certain things or whatever. So when you talk about the Most High is not responsible for physical reality, because human beings were really not supposed to be created anyway. So I'm not going to go into that here, because I know I really said I wasn't going to go into too much of the ET thing here, but just to explain it from a point of view of, we have to tap into our own divine being that's within us or whatever, because the Most High gave us a part of Him inside of us. It says in the Bible that ye are all God's children of the Most High, which means that we all have divinity within us, and we're already connected to the Most High. So the only thing we have to do is pray. In general, pray means to ask. So the only thing we have to do is ask the universe, or pray to the Most High, or pray not really to the Most High, but basically just pray in general, and those things will be given to us. We don't even really have to ask a lot of times. A lot of times your thoughts will attract things to you. So we have to learn how to work more so through mental sciences, and more so through mental spiritual sciences, instead of depending on outside people to save us, because those outside people been deceiving us about the Most High and been telling us that God is going to come back and stuff like that, when God gave us everything that it takes for us to save ourselves. That's basically what I mean when I talk about God or Most High. It's not that I'm an atheist. It's not that I don't believe in a higher existence. I just know that higher existence is in me, and I have to sometimes we don't experience that, because. But
that's why I wanted to have you share it, because it's important for us, people who were enslaved or brainwashed into believing this idea that, God will save us, or, the Christ is going to come back in us. What you are sharing is very important, because what you're saying is that we have to tap into our own divine beingness, that we are actually already connected to the Most High, because there's part of us that is God, right?
Indeed.
And so that God, the Most High, as what most people call God, doesn't care about the physical reality. He or it or them has designated certain angels to help us with some of those things. And so the way that we're going to be saved is to tap into our own divine being, in our own divinity. I think that's how I understood you on the YouTube video and even here as you're speaking.
Oh yeah. Everything I teach is consistent. I mean, basically I try to, I've studied and researched, and I know that, I know which most of like the terms that people use for God are really angels and stuff like that. So I know that we really have a connection with the Most High in us, and really a lot of beings don't want us to know that actually. So they're really, that's where you get the concept of the devil from. Those beings that are the devil are considered beings that don't want us to know we're connected to the Most High or whatever, that we have everything within us to make it. So they don't want us to know that, and they want us to basically feel like, that anything outside of physical reality isn't real. It's a lot of beings that want us to feel like that you got to get yours now type of thing. You have to basically pretty much get yours in the physical world, because after that you will be no more type of thing. It's a lot of people that believe that. Exactly.
Yeah,
and then there's the reverse of people. Let me point out one thing real quick. Then there's those other people that believe that, that everything that they want is on the outside of them, and they have to wait for somebody or some entity or something to come to them and bring these things to them. And that's just as much of a deception as the other point that I made prior to, or the latter point that I made. So basically, the bottom line is that everything is within you. Your deity is within you. Your Most High is within you. You already were connected to it, because we never really split from the Most High. We just are in an illusion, which is called the Matrix, and we think we're separated from everybody else and from the Most High. But really, the Most High is everybody put together. Like really, if you really want to truly know what God is all of us consciousness put together. Like that is God. Like all of our consciousness put together, that's God. Then and that's why I can't excel past you. Like I can only go as far as you can go, because I'm connected to you. Like you can only go as far as I can go, because you're connected to me. So we're all interconnected. So that's why even when you can't really ascend, but only so far unless you get, like, you have to teach and help other people to ascend. You can only go so far by yourself. And that's another point too. If you really want to healthily make the ascension, if you want to make the ascension and still be healthy in it, you have to definitely offer what you know to people and teach people along the way, along your path. Like you're doing now. I mean, like that's what everybody has to do that has knowledge and information.
Absolutely. As we are doing together here.
Exactly.
It's recognizing that. So thank you for sharing that. And I want to reiterate what you said. You said that, there are people who have a misunderstanding about where God is. Like they're separate. And what you're saying is that you have everything inside of you. So you don't have to go to a temple or a mosque or a church or a synagogue, whatever, to find God. God is already within you, and God is actually all of our consciousness put together. Everything is inside of you. Your divinity is within you. Great point.
That's
so
right.
Let's move quickly here, because I know that your time is precious, and I certainly want to respect that. So, you probably touched on some of this already. What are some of the other steps that you would recommend that people do to begin to break the chains of enslavement? One of them is the belief, right? So we have to change our belief that God is outside, we're separate from God, and we're disconnected. And how you would say the idea that God is going to come down and save us. So we need to tap into our own divinity and recognize our connection. Are there some other steps that you would recommend that people take to begin to break from the matrix or the enslavement?
Study. Well, I mean, like anything that you see on television.
Researching.
Yeah, you have to research things on your own, look up things on your own. Like even to the point you can't believe what they told you 100% about slavery, anything, because everything, like history is basically what I call his story. So, or what some teachers call it. Like I'm not the first one to come up with that, of course, but a lot of teachers call it his story. So I like to say, like, we need to learn more about our story, and the only way we can learn about our story is by talking to one another, researching, sharing information with one another. The news and the media, people think that's a part of the government. The news is privately owned by one guy that owns all the news stations across the world. One man, and I'm sure you already know that. One man owns all the news stations, so you can't wait. You can't wait for one guy. You can't wait for one guy to tell you the truth. You got to go do your own research. I mean,
we can't depend on the media, mainstream media, to provide us with news. I think a lot of people are waking up to that, but I love that you just brought that up. So we need to start being very careful about where we're getting our news and our information from. And TV is something that it can be a tool to empower, but most people don't use it to empower them, right? Because they've been brainwashed and they're kind of caught up in the day-to-day brainwashing. So another way to, excuse me, another way to break the chain, you said, is the research. Check stuff out on your own. Excuse me, because we've been told a lot of lies over the years. And some of us still don't know what the truth is. So go on and find it out. And information is right at our fingertips right now. You know, if we do some, I think most of us are fortunate enough to have access to the internet. There's a lot that you can find, and you can, you know, sift through and find out the truth. So those are some key points there. So I want to quickly just touch on your work, because, you know, I had the opportunity to find you on YouTube, and then I asked for some charts. So I want you to talk, how does the work you do with astrology and natal charts help to empower people? So let's do that.
I love doing my work with astrology because I'm teaching people to be themselves, and that's the greatest teaching. Like, that's the greatest teaching, to teach someone to be themselves. Like, most people don't even know who they are. Like, I do natal charts for people, and I think, I say this all the time, and I'll be joking around, but I'm serious, though. I think sometimes I think I'm doing a natal chart for a celebrity, because I'm like, wow, this person is like, man, amazing. And then I get on the phone and do the consultation, get to talking to them, and find out that they're not doing nowhere near the stuff that they could be doing in their natal chart. They don't know. So a lot of times when I tell them some of the stuff they could be doing, it's amazing when they call me back 6 months later, like, man, I'm glad you told me that, because like I really pursued that, and I didn't realize I had that in me, or I didn't realize I was supposed to be doing this or that, or I wasn't supposed to be with that particular man or woman. So I love doing astrology because it's the greatest teaching somebody to be themselves.
That's fantastic, and I have to say that certainly, you know, when I got the chart and I looked at it, so much of it spoke to, you know, various different parts of my life. I can see it, various different parts. And I love that you say sometimes you look at a chart and the chart looks aligned like it's beautiful. And then you talk to people and you realize that they're not really living their purpose. They're not really living to the divinity that's in them. And so you're able to help them as a result of consulting with them. You're able to help them to feel more empowered in their life and to start living into the truth of who they are.
Yes, I love it. I mean, that's what keeps me going. I mean, if it wasn't for astrology, I don't know where I would be. So. Yeah,
no, that's really significant. I love that you share that. So I want to acknowledge you, Imhotep, as, you know, one of the few Moors that I have come across, and also somebody who is representative of melanated people, who has the knowledge to provide this information in a fairly balanced way, and you're actually bringing it. So I wonder if you can tell me, why do you think so few melanated people have come forward to share this information? What's the gap? What's keeping people from this particular, you could say this specialty, in a way, is a specialty, right?
Right. Well, I'm kind of radical, and I'll just say this. I mean, melanated people, they're not going to want to hear this, but it's the truth. So, you know, the truth, I have to speak it because I'm obligated. But melanated people really need to raise our vibration so that we can, like, a lot of people haven't stepped up. Like, a lot of people have stepped up as far as, like, melanated people, but it's been, like, half research. A lot of racism has been mixed in with a lot of teachings from melanated people. And those people, when you mix in racism with your teachings, that shows that you don't know history. Because if you knew the real history of slavery, you wouldn't feel so much of a victim because you're melanated, and you would look at, I'm not saying, like, I know Europeans and melanated people have had history, you know what I'm saying, that has not been so well. So, you know what I'm saying, I definitely acknowledge that, definitely. But I'm just saying that in order for me to play the victim and be racist, I couldn't do that because I know too much about history, and I know what melanated people was doing before slavery and stuff like that. So I'm just saying all that to say melanated people need to study more, get more information, and once they do that, break the fear chains and the lower vibrational chains that are holding them back so that they can feel more comfortable in presenting information. And when they do present information, it will be received by more people, and it will be a better response. The reason why like a lot of melanated people haven't stepped up, like I said, because the vibration is low. It's a lot of fear. It's a lot of anger and hate, too. Just a lot of lower level emotions that melanated people are more so playing a victim, like, overall. Like that's what like we're doing. And I was doing it too, so that's why I'm speaking from my own experiences. I was doing it too. Like it took me a while to really. I mean, I stepped up at a young age, but I could have been stepped up really because it was like struggling with my own fears and just my own negativity, my own BS. So.
Yeah. But you know what's beautiful about it is that you stepped up early, and so you get to represent at this juncture in your life because you're still a very young man, and so when I see you doing what you're doing, then you know it gives me encouragement, it gives me hope for the generations coming, and you know I speak to you as the mother of two young men, and so when I see you, and also I have brothers, when I see you, I think, wow, it gives me, it encourages me, it inspires me. And I love what you have to say. I know it's a little tough, but it's true, I think, and I can speak as somebody, a melanated person myself. I do believe that as melanated people, we deal with a lot of victimization, we deal with a lot of fear, and we take a lot of information that's been given to us. Some of it is programming from religion. A lot of us are steeped in very staunch beliefs.
Yeah, but we're strong people, so don't get me wrong. I want to bring
vibration.
No, I'm just saying, just
fear and study some more.
Yeah, just to bring a little balance. The reason why we're, I guess, targeted so much is because we're the strongest people on the planet. I mean, don't get me twisted. Melanated people are definitely the strongest people on the planet, and that's why we're given the most challenges. Like they say, to whom much is given, much is tested. So you have to, as a melanated person, you have to know that there's going to be more challenges for you. Like, don't play the victim.
Exactly. There's definitely, that I think is a very powerful point. Any final words for our listeners as we get ready to wrap it up?
My final words will be just live in love amongst each other. Don't let the negative vibrations that a lot of us may be experiencing, because I mean 2012 has been emotional for a lot of people, but don't let the negative vibrations get the best of you. I mean, being negative is definitely, it has its purpose, but ultimately you want to spend more of your days being positive, being in love with each other, and just basically being in harmony and in peace with each other, and at all times always speak the truth. Like, speak the truth regardless of circumstances. So I'll basically leave with that.
Great. So just to reiterate, your parting words are to live in love amongst each other. Don't let the negative vibrations get the best of you, and at all times speak the truth.
That's right.
Those are powerful words to leave with us. And so, Ra Imhotep, I want to thank you for taking the time this morning in the midst of your hectic schedule to share your wisdom, your knowledge, and your expertise and insights with us, and to give us some encouragement to help us move forward in this time of 2012 Ascension. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I thank you for having me, and I look forward to meeting with you again, and it was definitely fun.
Absolutely. Loved having you as well. So we look forward to maybe talking some more about doing something else. All right. So listeners, as we get ready to finish up, just want to thank you for joining with us. And as Ron Imhotep shared, I just want to leave you with the parting words that he shared. Live in love amongst each other. Let's live in love. Let's not allow our negativity to get the best of us. Let's recognize that fear is something that can keep us low. So let's let go off of that and just continue to move forward. I thank you for sharing and spending time as we hold space together. Love, light, and blessings. Have yourselves a fantastic day, afternoon, or evening. All the best. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Bye now. And there you have it. Just a little radio show that I was asked to do. So I went on ahead and let the YouTube subscribers kind of like listen in on some of the stuff I do on a day-to-day basis. I do a lot more than just YouTube. Do a lot of radio shows and stuff like that. So thank you guys for watching this video. I'm not going to hold you guys up any longer. It was real. And to my next video, I'll leave you all with peace, love, prosperity, and happiness.